Okay, so welcome to the Thrive On Gathering. And tonight we are going to be talking about the magical power of our words. And, with what's going on in the world today, communication is at really an all time dysfunction. If you kind of look at the world, there's a lot of people saying a lot of things. And things that are going on that we are in reaction or we are in response to. And there's a huge difference. So reaction is based off of things that have happened in the past. And definitely, there's so many subjects right now that are really hitting some big trigger buttons that are triggering things within us that have seeds from the past, and it's causing a reaction within society. And the difference between a reaction and a response is a reaction, there's no thought put into a reaction. It's just like a trigger, boom, it's hit, you go. So a reaction is actually just your energy working off of a pattern that is already there, that has roots to it. Okay. And if we're just doing patterns over, we're regurgitating these patterns. And the difference between that and a response is actually something, it's like you see what's going on and you actually think about it for a second. It's like, okay, how do I want to respond to this? What kind of energy do I want to put into it? When we do that, we come from a thoughtful, mindful place versus just a trigger point, kind of like a shooting a gun reaction. And right now, it's really, really important to really do that observation, because, things that are in the mirror are not as they appear. Okay, so things we thought we knew how they were are clearly coming to the surface to be questioned, to be, what's going on? And when we can come from a mindful place and respond, we step more into our power every time we do that, because that's how we intercept the old pattern. We start writing a new script. And so with that, the magical power of words, we were never taught what it really means when we speak. We just use words. We learn them in school. We go to language classes, literature and all this, and we learn how to speak them, but we don't ever learn about how it is that when we speak, what those words really mean. But if you think about it, like with little kids, words are like weapons. Okay, and I shouldn't say just little kids, but you see that with little kids. Like somebody will say something to them, and it's like, oh my God, it's like they threw a dagger at them, like it just hurt them to the core. And they were words. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. But actually, that's not true. Words do hurt. We see how words hurt. But we also, on the flip side of that, people, a lot of times when they're using, anybody who has negativity that they are putting on somebody else, that's actually what's going on with them. So that's where the response, the reaction comes from. But if we start to be mindful of the words that we are using, we are actually, again, we're stepping into our power, and then we're using those words in a different way, which is literally magical, because what it is that we speak is what we're getting back. I talk a lot about the law of reciprocity, because the law of reciprocity is literally what you're putting out comes back to you, that karma ring that I, talk about. And so with words, literally, I'm just going to use, you know, okay, so one of the most powerful statements that we can possibly make is an I am statement. Because when we're saying I am, we're using that I am that I am. That literally comes from the Bible, but it is such a key teaching because it's showing you that's the law of reciprocity. So I am that which I'm putting out. I am that which I am being the frequency of. So the words that we're using is actually creating a frequency. And right now, one of the big things and the statements that's up in the air is around the George Floyd incident that really has, on the tragic level, we're seeing a lot of chaos. But on the positive level, we are seeing the communities, coming together and supporting each other. And one of the statements, however, that's being used is "I can't breathe." And when we're saying a statement like that, I understand what happened was very tragic, but we don't want to continue affirming that we can't breathe, because everything that we say is literally an affirmation. So we have to be mindful and choose to respond through thoughtfulness. So it's like, love one another right now. My voice matters. All voices matter. Equality matters, because even though it kind of seems like one particular group is being picked on, in actuality, it is really everybody. We're all being affected by this. So when we use our words, it really is important that we're putting out there what we want back. So, with this, even, the things that are going on as far as like the virus, that, the virus definitely does exist, but, again, the words were connotating with that. And every day I'm just like, I'm so grateful for my health. I am healthy. And I'm constantly affirming that I'm healthy. I'm getting all the nutrients that I need. And those are really powerful words. So, Jean, with that, can you tell between the difference of when you're kind of like in that negative point of mind, the things that you're attracting to you at that point, and versus like when you're in a positive kind of point of mind, the difference between the quality that of the results that you get?
You lost me when you said native. What? I get when you said native. What was the word?
So, like, because I know you are somebody who really practices, some of this about I remember you teaching me about money. Do you remember about the bills, the dollar bills?
Yes.
Okay, so that was a really good example. Can you share with me that? Share with everybody that's here. Tell them about the money thing.
Sure. It was shared with me, and so whenever I've had transactions with money, if someone has purchased something from me, if I've made it or have been selling it, and I usually say, wouldn't you like more blessings? And of course, they always say yes. And I said, well, I'm going to share this with you if that's okay. And I said, when you give your money for something, money's energy. It's what we say that it is. So take that energy, whether it be in check form or cash, take that check if you're giving it to someone and fold it in half so that when you give it to the person that you are trading this for, then the blessings come back to you twofold. So same thing with your cash. put your bigger denomination on the outside because we want the most abundance we can get. And so handing it off to someone in their, you use your giving hand, your right hand, universally your right hand. And if they are receptive, they take it with their left hand. You don't have to, even if you make that a conscious thing in your mind, it doesn't matter if they take it with a different hand because you know what the process is for yourself.
Right.
And so we all want blessings, and why not use what we have to use many times a day sometimes, but in exchange then to receive double the blessing.
Well, and I remember you doing that with the bill, and you folded the bill in half and you said, look, because it says, in God we trust. And then, and you give this, you hold the edges and you give the seam where it's folded, you let them grab the seam. So it's the give and receive happening right within the bill. And so that is such a perfect example, because I remember when you showed me that and how we very unconsciously just spend money, and we have random thoughts about money, and a lot of times those thoughts are, scarcity and lack. But when you taught me that, I went from reacting, the old reaction I had to money, and I literally, every time from that point on, I just remember that I was literally thinking, and I'd be in the cash register line and folding my bills right. And I'm like, I'm doing this. Like, gee, that was such a jewel. And it really was one of the steps. It was like one of those things that I could apply anywhere. You're like you said, we're spending it all the time. And so that was like such a great example of just that. It's like, first of all, it's like the words we were using about it. It was like, it's returning to me in God we trust. And we weren't just using words. We were like literally physically creating that with the shape through, geometry that we were doing it through. So it was like, there was a whole lot of energy that really deliberately went into it, but that took a shift in the thinking. So
might be sacred geometry.
Yes. See? But that's so awesome, because that is such a practical example of just that. It's like taking the time now, like I said, I used to just spend money not thinking about it. And now it's like, no, I still even do this, just because we're so used to doing it the old way, that I still remind myself every time that it's like, nope, I'm going to do this. It's consciously making that choice to respond in the way that I want to receive back. And that was an awesome.
Yeah, and we've been promised that, and we can test it. We've been promised. It's a promise.
And it's not just the words, it's like the energy. I feel totally different spending when I do that in a purposeful manner with the energy of, it's like reci-give. It's receiving and giving at the same time, which is just like being in your flow. And it just feels good to be in that flow.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting with, it's like, changing that perception and using a different vocabulary, changing the words we're using, makes huge, profound effects in our lives. And I definitely, can you see where this also acts in other places in your life?
Well, just even if you give a donation even, and you don't know exactly where that donation is going to go to, there's no doubt that it comes back at you twofold.
Right.
I don't know. I can't think of anything specific.
I can think of, okay, so yesterday usually I've actually been in a very upbeat mood through this whole thing that's been going on, but every once in a while you get one of those down moments or down days. And yesterday I was just grumpy, and it was it was kind of making me like, okay, it just I could see that it was happening, but I was just, man, I'm growly, I'm grumpy. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to be around anybody, and all of a sudden I could hear this inner dialogue, and it was like, okay, no, you know what? I know that I really like being around people. I know that I like really being out in nature and being and doing things, and I know that that's what really makes me, happy. So I got out and I went for a walk, and it was like, no, I'm gonna choose to be in a better mood. I'm gonna choose to have fun today. I'm not gonna just stay in this grumpy mood. And when I do those types of things, it's like I give myself what I call my little pep talk. So I'm like coaching myself, and like a first, or was it the third base coach? It's like, go to home, go to home. It's like, I see that in my mind. It's like, no, you know what? You can make a change. You can choose something different, even if you are feeling horrible and just grumpy right now.
Yeah, because you're moving energy
Uh-huh.
and you're choosing other thoughts, even if you don't feel that way, but choosing to do something else higher the vibration right there from the fact of even making the choice for more movement,
And
whether we think about it or physically move.
right. And it's making the choice, and then when you make that choice, it's like your words automatically change, because it's kind of like, so I can't. It's like, I can't do that. I can't, so you prove yourself right. What the thinker thinks is what the prover proves. So every time you say I can't, so I can't be in a better mood. I can't choose what's going on. I have, I can't. As soon as you switch into I can, automatically it's like the words, it's like, okay, I can do that. Your words automatically change. What else is possible? How could I do this? How could this be accomplished? Like, what else am I not seeing? And it's like, when you make that switch and you make the decision to use words that are supporting yourself, it's like you get a totally different outcome.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know you use that on a regular basis too. I know we've talked about things like in the moment with clients, or just stuff that's happening in the world.
Yeah, stuff that's happening in the world. Wow. You certainly, right now, I feel more connected to the world than I ever have before.
In a very different way too, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Almost like what am I trying to say? Like the real basics of, I don't want to say survival, because I mean, we're not all out just right now surviving, but I don't know, so many things have changed for the better.
I was kind of noticing that so now the economy is starting to open up, and it's very interesting that, not that everybody's doing this, but there's a large percentage of people that are, I think, starting to really, the material stuff doesn't really matter as much as other things do now. And so the spending is not coming back. It's like they're really like, okay, do I really need this? And I think it's still because it's like, we don't know what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
we don't know what's going to happen. It's like, okay, you get real clear about what is really important. And that's a really good thing, I think, because I
Yeah.
think it's opening up a space that opening up attention to a different area, um, because we're not so focused on what we used to be focused on.
Mhm.
And that definitely is kind of a place where you can see a shift in consciousness, because we really just kind of got robotic of this is our life, and we got in these patterns and ruts
I
and
think it comes back to with what you were talking about. It's taking the time to respond instead of just the same cycle of reaction that we don't even realize we're in this cycle. We don't realize it until things slow down and all of a sudden your activities are, I don't know. Do I really appreciate that green grass out there more than I did last year? It certainly seems that way to me. Do I really appreciate the spring and the summer that's beginning? I don't know. I mean, I always love it, and I love all 4 seasons, but I'm noticing everything. It just, even how much clover we have in our yard, and maybe that clover was there last year, but my focus is different.
yeah. There's a huge draw into nature. Like I've noticed that too, in many different ways, that I don't know, it like the green seems greener. Like I was noticing, well, I got to go kayaking the other day, and we're on the lake, and you up where we are, and I know you're up in that range too. Um, you always have that deep evergreen kind of year long, but then I was just like seeing, like, you still had those peeking out, but it was like all these bright different lighter greens, different textures and everything, and it was just like, man, this is gorgeous.
Yeah.
This is what the really good part of life is about, is just being in a space like that. It was just incredible. And I did, like, not that I don't enjoy that, but just me and my girlfriend were out there all by ourselves, kind of, at going into sunset, and we just kind of stopped paddling and just floated and just appreciated it for just a really long time. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But and a lot, okay, so with the word thing, the word magic. So one of the first times I remember really getting a good lesson in word connotation was, I had gone to this retreat that was up in Minneapolis, and it was a couple days, but we had done the morning session and went to lunch, came back, and one of the things, the guy was like, so does anyone have any questions? So somebody gets up on the podium and starts asking a question, and he's just like, well, why does blah blah blah, why does this keep happening, or blah 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 blah. It was like, why does this? And the guy stopped him immediately, and he said, listen, don't ever ask the question why, because when you ask why, it's literally asking the universe, like, well, show me again. Why does this keep happening? Show me again. It's regurgitating energy. And I was like, okay, oh my gosh, that was a great tip. I'm not going to do that anymore. So leave the hotel, get in the car. Somebody like cuts me off in the parking lot. And I'm like, oh my God, why did you do that? And I'm like, oh, I can't, I'm not supposed to be asking why. Like, that's a no-no. But then I was like, no, wait a minute. We can't just delete words out of our vocabulary, but we can become aware of how we're using those words. So when we're saying, like, well, why does this keep happening? That's like saying, show me again. But if we start using that in a way, it's like, well, why does abundance just keep coming to me? Why does that keep happening? If we start shifting it from doom and gloom or negative connotation into a positive, the energy behind it flips, like literally flips. So it's like lack of abundance to abundance. And you can do that with the main, so what, why, how are our main 3 words that we use more than anything. So it's like, well, instead of like, well, how did that happen again? It's like, well, how do such good things keep happening? How can I keep going? And how can I, the phrase, how can I, it's literally asking for directions from the universe. So anytime you attach anything to the how can I, it's like, show me how, instead of show me how it keeps happening in the negative way. It's like, show me how it can happen. You know, it's opening a door versus closing a door. Can you see the difference between that?
Yeah.
And it's really subtle.
Well, I
But
remember being taught that our words are like prayers.
yes,
And when she shared that to me, she didn't say big prayers, little prayers, just plain old simple words are like prayers. And I went, wow, you know,
Louise Hay, that's like the basis of her entire work is that, just that. It's that everything that we speak is an affirmation, but we were never taught that that's what it was. And when we start learning that, it's like, it's literally, instead of giving our power away, we actually shift it so that we become in our power, standing in our power, choosing, instead of just giving it away and going with the herd mentality. And right now, it's so important that we start waking up to that. Like I all week I've just been watching, like I'm saying, communication, and I think there's a lot of things that people are feeling and they're coming out in their words. But also, it's like we're also feeling that we need a change and we want to move in a positive direction. So, maybe there is a need to express and release, but then we also need to be mindful that we're not, because what happens when we do that is then we create a space. It's like, what are you going to fill with that space? We don't want to keep focusing on the what we don't want. At some point, it's like, okay, so now how do we move from A to B? And that is going to be through making a new choice, being able to respond instead of just being in reaction. And this is happening on a global level, but this is also, it's exactly the way it happens at a personal level. And to be honest, it's a lot of times when it's happening on a personal level, it's like literally you're fighting yourself or you're helping yourself. And a lot of it has to do with the thoughts that you're thinking, because we talk to ourselves more than we talk to anybody else. So you're your number one, voice and listener. So, be mindful, start listening to those words. Like, how am I talking to myself? Am I talking to myself in a way that I would, tell a friend, talk to a friend? Or am I actually kind of being my biggest bully? And a lot of times it's a mixture of both. So it's kind of being mindful. It's like, okay, so what am I doing right now? And is this loving myself? Is this really what I want? Or what else is possible? What other choice could I make? Because literally, it doesn't matter. Everything, when you boil it down, like to a quantum physics level, it's thoughts plus emotions are what equals what we're creating. So our thoughts, whether they're external or internal, are having an effect. And there is an emotional connection to them. And when we become aware of that whole connection and mindful that, okay, so what I'm doing here is actually creating what's going to happen coming down the line. Because whatever we're standing in right now is what we had thoughts and emotions about in the past. So now we're experiencing that. And if we want something different, we got to change that combination. We got to be aware. It's like, okay, is this really what I want to bring forward? Do you agree with that?
yes.
Is
Yeah.
there
Excuse me. Now I lost my train of thought. Keep going. I'll think about it.
Well, it's like, that's the thing is these are the things that I have had to become mindful, just like that money practice that you taught me. It was like there was little things along the way that were like, okay, even though you taught me that in a money factor, it was like really that was teaching me things on so many different levels. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just about abundance. It was about how my mind was working around it. And was I seeing abundance coming back to me? And I wasn't connecting any of that when you showed me that. And then it was like, okay, when I really started, just doing that one thing. But again, there's been so many things along the way that it's really almost the same lesson happening in different ways. But it really does come back to like the words that we're using and how we're using them. Because that's literally, that's like the product we're putting out. And so it's like, what kind of quality projection am I making that is going to, circle back to me? And it happened, I don't know, it just happens in so many ways, just in daily, going about my daily stuff. It could be like going to the gas station, something happens and I'm like, okay, I'm choosing how I'm perceiving this and I'm using my words wisely because I know that it's like, okay, I don't want to get in an argument with somebody. I don't, I want clear communication. I want harmonious effects. It's like, so if that's what I want, what words am I going to use to be able to create that?
And what can I learn from this?
Yes. And I think, don't you think like just automatically when you get into that observer mode, it's like you're automatically switching into the learning mode.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah, that, the simplest, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And it can be a total unexpected teacher that's right in front of you. And when you are in that type of a mode of looking for the teacher, not saying, oh, I'm looking for my teacher, where is he? But that chance when something even doesn't go how you think it should, what is this teaching me?
Exactly.
How do I maybe need to do this differently? It'd be the same situation, but how can I again react, not react, or even once I react, take that reaction and look at it and think of how I'm going to respond then after even.
Yeah.
I mean, we're human, so we're going to react sometimes. But then we know we have a choice.
Yeah. I know this happens to every like holiday seasons, like when you have to go and have interaction with your family, that can be a lot of fun. And I know that's one of the things like I've had to, even lately, it's like I have to really, it's like, okay, I don't, maybe there was a pattern there of arguing and disagreeing. It's like, okay, I'm going to choose a way that is not going to be that. And when you show up with a different mindset going in, it makes a huge difference on what kind of interaction you have. Yeah. And you think it's like, or it has to be the other person. It's like, no, actually it has to start with you. So I know in the past, like there were certain people I'd come around and it'd be like, okay, I automatically just felt defensive.
Have you heard that? My husband taught me this one. The statement, "Is that so?"
Oh, is that a Byron Katie?
Oh, I don't even know.
she's got some phenomenal work, but it sounds like a Byron Katie. Yeah,
I don't even know. All I know is my husband shared it with me. I don't know where it
I think
comes from.
it's like, is that true? I mean,
Um,
is that absolute?
no, no.
Okay.
It's even taking it back a step, because then you're saying true or false. You're giving a analysis of it. It's just, is that so? And using those words, you can use that word, those small 3 words, with a different connotation. And is that so? You're hearing them. You're not saying you agree, but you're saying, is that so?
Okay.
Is that so? Is that so? Is that so?
Because it
You can,
opens your mind up to think.
yes, and you're not saying they're right. You're not saying they're wrong. You're not saying you agree. You're not saying you disagree. And boy, that has helped me.
That is
Again, taking the time, because you are responding. You aren't reacting to what they're saying. You're just going, is that so? You know, I'm hearing you. Doesn't mean I agree with you, but I'm hearing you.
So I use the word interesting. Isn't that interesting? But again, because I use this with clients, so my kind of caveat to that is pay attention to how you're using it. Because you can also, I told this to a client, and then she went to her daughter and she's like, well, that's interesting. It was like, you can't do it with attitude. You got to be like, just like how you're doing it. It's like, I'm just in that curious space of it not being judgmental. I'm not judging it. I'm just looking at it.
Right.
So either way, so yes, I like that, because yes. But again, being mindful. So what connotation am I putting on this? Do I have, because you know, again, you can swing that, but it's being, when you said it, I could, it's like, yeah, is that so? And the way you were saying it was like, yeah. Um, so be in that mindful space of just neutral, like you said.
I use that with my husband. I use it on him. No.
You know what it does is it keeps you out of trouble. I definitely have noticed.
It keeps you from letting someone push your buttons.
Yes, yes, definitely.
And that's where I go, I don't have to react. I can just say, is that so?
Well, that's another choice. So when people are saying things, you know, and the way we're kind of taught is just, you know, as kids, we just agree with things. You know what I mean? So we get in this habit of just agreeing. That's what the Don Miguel Ruiz, that 4 agreements.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, and it's so true that we don't like. Do I actually agree with that? But those statements, that is that so, or isn't that interesting, it kind of, it gives you a space to be able to look at it. But also, you know, when you're talking to somebody else, they want to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
And it's a great way not to, it's like, okay, I'm going to acknowledge you. So, well, that's very interesting. They feel like you heard them, but you didn't agree with them. And there was no argument.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've used that a million times. And it makes a gigantic difference, because it's like, okay, I can allow you to have your belief, but I don't necessarily agree, but I don't have to challenge you on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome, because definitely.
Yeah, because I used to feel that I had to explain myself why I felt like I felt and how they should see how I feel. I don't feel that way anymore. And that's very emotionally freeing, very, very freeing.
Well, what happens is we have been taught to look outside of ourselves for acknowledgement. And so what you did with that is you got to the point where you realized it's like I don't need to be acknowledged outside of myself. I need to acknowledge me.
Yeah.
And that's it's like a huge release of it's like a cord just snapping both ways. It's like being cut when you make
Yeah.
that switch. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because I had a working relationship that was very difficult.
Yeah, those are pretty common.
Yeah, and you know who had to change? I did.
Yeah.
I had to just quit reacting.
Yep.
As long as it doesn't affect who I'm working with, because of course I take care of people. So as long as it doesn't affect their care, that person can have whatever attitude they want. Not attitude, whatever way of looking at it. Because if it doesn't interfere with the betterment, or not the betterment, if it doesn't interfere with taking care of that person, let's just put it that way, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
So you can say black and the next time you can say white. I don't have to say to that person anymore, well, you just said that was black. Now you're saying it's white. Because you know what? It's not about me. That's their issue. So that's a really good place to be when you've been in problematic relationships like that, whether it's work or friends or significant others or spouses.
Yes.
And it's almost like that pat thing of saying you agree to disagree, even though they're not even thinking the way you are. But for me, I don't have to change that person's thinking. And I just have to walk my own talk. That's all I'm responsible for, is my talk, my words, my responses, and the rest is up to that person.
Right.
And so then I got through the difficult relationship, and all of a sudden it's like, we're pals. We are actually pals.
Isn't that funny? But so what you did, so just taking a look at that, instead of, so the agree to disagree, right? That's a horrible statement. And this is why, because your focus, so what we focus on is what we get. And people say that as if it's like, okay, we're just going to part ways and everything's going to be good. But actually, because there's a disagreement, and that's what the focus is on, is a disagreement, that's what still perpetuates. And that's where it's like I'm saying, that these little nuances with our words, like when you start paying attention, it's like, so it doesn't.
So what would be a better way of
what you did is,
stating that?
instead of well, you don't even have to say anything, because what you do the work instead of, so when you're saying okay, well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree, it's like, okay, we're still both mad, you know. But if you were like, okay, well, isn't that interesting, or well, okay, or is that so? Okay, so it's like a pondering thought. But what you're doing is internally, you're saying, I can allow you to be you, and I can allow me to be me at the same time. So I don't have to control it. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to be mad about it. It's like, okay, listen, I understand because you're doing your internal work. It's like, I'm okay. It's okay that I think this way. And it's okay that you don't agree with me. And it's okay that I don't agree with you either. But I know that what's happening is right for me, and that's just okay. So it's just really this sense of allowing, so that it instead of holding that, okay, well, we're in a disagreement, which is like holding on to a battle. So, have you ever heard that phrase about what you resist persists?
Yeah.
So we have to agree to disagree. So I'm resisting agreeing, which is creating this wall. I'm resisting this. But then what your focus is on is the disagreement, because that's what you're stating. So you're putting energy still into a disagreement.
So I guess I'm asking for what's a pat brain answer to say to yourself, instead of saying in your mind even that, well, I just agree to disagree. What can you replace it with?
So I just did this yesterday, and I just literally, I'm listening to somebody talk, and they were so just ranting about stuff that I don't even know why I'm listening to this. And I'm just like, I can allow you to believe that. That's all I'm saying to myself, is like, I can allow you to do that. That doesn't mean I'm accepting. It just, I can allow you to be where you're at. Especially, right now, as people are so polarized, and there are so many different points of view.
Right.
And none of them, I mean, they all might have some similarities, but they're very different depending on who you're talking to. I just basically, I'm just like, in myself, I'm just like, okay, I can allow you to be who you are and to have your point of view. And a lot of times the people's point of view comes from the things that they themselves have gone through. So I haven't gone through what this other person, whoever it is, I have a journey.
That's the other thing, is it's so easy to judge, because the three of us girls, will talk, and it's so easy to judge because how a person reacts, and then you find out some background and you think, oh my gosh, no wonder they react that way.
Right.
So that's again where the empathy comes, and I'm hearing what you're saying and I understand, and you're on your own path about when you're going to understand that. And I'm here if you are open to me sharing and showing you another way, but I don't have to push that.
Right.
So, because this was not a good situation. And, people have even said, I don't know how you can work with that person. Well, I changed my attitude. That's all. And that, I don't mean to say, I mean, that's what happened. I just changed my attitude. That person hasn't changed. I'm the one who changed at how I looked at it.
Right.
So again, I believe that I respond instead of react. Not that I don't ever react.
Yeah.
I do. But then, then I back up and go, hey, now wait a minute. That was, just back up and rethink that, and next time just let it go.
But you know what, even when you're doing that, that's actually a really powerful thing, because especially when you first start learning these things and try to practice them, nobody's 100%. I'm still not 100%. I've been doing this for years. I know you have too. It's like we still it's just literally being in the moment, and sometimes we're better at being in the moment than others.
Yeah.
But when you do realize it doesn't matter when you realize and start becoming conscious, because literally that's becoming conscious means we're becoming aware. Yeah. So when you become aware of it, then you can do something about it. It doesn't matter if it's in the moment or after the moment, because then, like you said, all of a sudden it's like, okay, rewind you can literally change that frequency of what happened because everything is vibration. So a vibration happened.
Yeah.
So, well, that I wasn't real happy with that vibration. So you go back to that and you're like, okay, what else could have happened, or how else could I have handled it? And you're tweaking that frequency in the moment that you're becoming aware of it. So it doesn't matter. It's still just as powerful, because you can't do anything about something that you can't see. But when you do get the gift of being able to see it, it's like, oh, a little insight, that moment, you can't do anything until you can see it. So once you see it, that's when that's the power point.
Yeah.
That's the moment of the greatest power, because you have, in that moment, I can see it, so I can make a different choice.
All I know is it has made my life so much more enjoyable. I mean, I was actually taking days off so I didn't have to work with that person as much. Now that's really a problem. So I had to find a different way. And like I said, no, we're pals. We are actually pals.
That's awesome.
And it sure has made my life easier, because when you're working with that person all day long and no one else, that can be very, very challenging. Very challenging. So I don't know, I don't know when the magic time comes when you can get to that place. But once you learn that also, okay, now I already learned that, now I know I can use that in another situation if I ever had to, because I got it down. So it does, like even you said, the simple thing with the money, you start looking at things like that in similar ways, similar application.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all good.
It is. Well, and as you're talking about your situation at work, it's like, well, you get to choose. Are you going to make it heaven, or are you going to make it hell?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And literally, that you got to experience both. How cool.
Yeah. Well, it took a real slap in my face, to be honest with you.
But that was your
really did.
Of learning. That was your journey of going through that and choosing. It's like, okay, I'm going to shift this.
Oh yeah, I had to really let go of my ego. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, egos are fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Foolish pride.
Well, but I think that is the reaction. And then the reaction, we keep repeating these patterns that are patterns that don't work. And then we start beating ourselves up because we can't get out of the pattern, because we're beating ourselves up. And then it just keeps going and getting bigger and bigger. And so that, that's the thing, is once you learn this stuff, you're not always going to catch it right away. But when you do use it, and it's practice makes perfect. So it's just keep going, keep getting back up on the horse.
Yeah. And it was where my focus was.
Yes.
Because I was so focused on it, I was miserable. Oh my gosh. And so when it was brought to my attention, and they used the actual word toxic, and I thought, whoa, that's a pretty strong word. But they were right. They were right. And when you think you're coping by sharing it with someone, that's not always true. Yeah, I might have been blowing my words, but the truth was, where was my focus going? It was going on the not so good relationship. That's where I was blowing those. They didn't want to hear it.
Right.
They didn't want to hear it. And so it was a real, wow, I don't, it was like I had to grow up. I almost felt like I had to grow up. And took me that many years to get it. Well, at least I got it.
I think that, so, okay, so there's a thing that I always talk about how one of the things that we're taught is that knowledge is power.
Mhm.
And I always say, like, that is the biggest lie we've ever been told. Because knowledge is just kind of like a set of directions. But if we don't apply the knowledge, it has no power at all. So it's
Yeah.
applying that. And through the application of knowledge is how you gain wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's what I think of, like, I had to do this stuff to become wise, to learn more. You
Right.
had to, but it was through the practice of just, I would get these little tiny things, like you showing me that money thing, how many years ago? I mean,
Oh
that
my
was
God.
a long time ago.
Ah,
So, but that was like one of those little, sometimes we just get little puzzle pieces at a time. And it's whatever that is, it's like, okay. And I
yeah.
just kept working on that little puzzle piece.
Yeah.
But that meant I was applying the knowledge that you provided me so that I could get to the wisdom of how that really worked.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I thank you. Like that was such a eye opener actually for me. And it really did make me be conscious about it, be aware of how I was using money and my relationship to money in that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, and this is like I was saying, we make things so complicated and we take things so personally and we try to control things. And it really comes down to something very simple, which is just how are we feeling? What are we thinking? And what are we putting out because of that? Now, it is, like I'm saying, I mean, it's simple, as in it's a simple formula, but applying that formula does take repetition, and it takes getting back up on that horse and reminding yourself. And because again, the reaction comes from the program. And we always have that gut reaction to go to what is familiar. And that happens without us even thinking. But that's where it's like when you really can get in there and be like, okay. And a lot of times it starts after the fact. But the more you just keep practicing and using your tools, it will start to come more in the moment.
Naturally. It'll
Yeah,
come naturally. Yeah.
totally.
My watercolor teacher, I was so we're practicing and we're watercoloring and and I really worked hard on a project, and she said to me, she goes, well, now you need to do that about 100 times and then you'll really know. And I went, ah! But it's true. That's how you learn.
Totally.
You learn from your mistakes, you learn what works, and it's repetition.
Well, riding a bike.
Yeah.
You start out small, you start out with training wheels, and then
Yeah.
eventually you get bigger and better and go.
Yeah.
So really everything happens that way. We just don't necessarily realize that that's the process. But how many times you start a new job, you walk in the first day, you are clueless. By the end of the first week, you know a lot more. By the end of 3 months, it's like, wow, look at all the stuff I've learned, and I really can do this. But it was a process of getting there.
Yeah.
So it really that's how everything happens. And if we can just be aware and embrace that process, and again, that's the whole thing, is choosing wisely what we're thinking, what we're talking about, how we're talking about it, because that is how, what we're focusing on, that's how we're directing our focus, is through all that. So when we become an active participant in, instead of just regurgitating a response or regurgitating a way that it used to be, we become really just aware. It's like, okay, this is the choices I'm making. This is what
Yeah,
I'm
one of my pet peeves. Of course, I only have one. Haha. Is when people say, "Well, that's just how I am. That's how I am," and it's like, oh, wait a minute. That's just taking the easy way. You can be anything that you want to be with, of course, learning and patience and everything else. But when you excuse yourself and just say, well, that's how I am. And people say that a lot.
Well, and that's okay. So when we were talking about the I am, so that's how I am. So they're literally owning that,
Oh
which,
yeah.
and they're using their words to reinforce that. So,
Oh yeah. They're cutting it off right there. Well, that's how I am.
but that's a great play. It's like, so I'm declaring that upon myself. So no, they're not those type of people. And like, when somebody says like, that's how I am, I'm like, well, as you choose. And you know what I think of? And as soon as I said it, is that Princess Bride, the movie Princess Bride, and he would always say, "As you wish, as you
Mm,
wish." But it's like, "As you choose," and
yeah.
I say that to people. So it's like I throw out that choose. So if they sometimes it's like planting a seed.
Yeah. They
You're
might
always,
not hear it the first time, and and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have a choice.
yeah, and you don't have to challenge them.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, as you choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, um, yeah, it is interesting. Sorry, I've had the same persistent spot on my foot, and I keep feeling like I'm getting bit by something. Like all day, this has been happening, and there's nothing there, but it's the same spot. I'm like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? um, but yeah, it is. It's funny how I guess also I started to learn how to play games with it. So um, in my mind, I see myself as this little fairy, and I have my own little world that's going on, even when I'm around other people. So I play with games like, well, okay, so like the how can I? I spend a lot of time in my car, and when you're just kind of free to roam, so is your mind. So the monkey mind starts, and all this chatter's going on, and I'm just like, man, where are you going, and why are you thinking about that? So I'll start playing like the how can I game, and I just literally just I'm just like I'm just gonna make this up. And as I drive, when I catch myself doing that, I'm just like, well, how can I have a great day today? How can I have more positive thoughts? How can I let more money just flow into my life? How can I, and I'm just driving down the road, how can I? Or what if? Or, because I'm saying like what, why, and how? Or why does money just keep flowing in? You can use any of those words. What else is possible? Any of those three words. Like I just started making games out of it, and it's like, so I look at your mind kind of like a toddler that is on free for all, like the terrible twos. And so you have to give it a activity. And when you do that, the child is entertained. So I would just entertain my inner child with an activity of one of those games. And I can 100% that it really what I think it helped me to do, because I would do it so much. And sometimes, I'm a big person in post-it notes. So I have affirmations and words and all this stuff. And I have post-it notes in my car to remind me, because when you look at them, you remember. And so that's literally, I think I just was able to kind of fast track some of that, because then I could see in conversations, or when things would happen, or I'd be at work, or you're in a meeting or something, and it was all of a sudden I'd be like, well, what if we did this, and or what if we tried that, or well, how could we make that happen? And I started to not just play with it, I was actually literally in starting to use it in my everyday vocabulary. So that is definitely one of the things that you can do is make it fun, because gosh, everything's so not fun. And I'd really rather have a good time.
Ah,
So, yeah. Well, thank you, Jean. Thank you for all your wisdom that you have shared with me over the years and everything you shared with everybody right now.
oh, I'm so glad I came on.
Yeah. This is a great conversation because, like I'm saying right now, it's very pivotal. We're at a very pivotal moment, and what the decisions that we are making right now are extremely important. So, our focus, the words we're using, being aware of what's going on and really starting to respond, getting out of that reaction, those are such critical things right now. So, I know over the coming weeks, we're going to talk more about this because, that's what I was kind of sharing with you earlier that, it's great that we are teaching these spiritual tools and they're also very needed, but we also need to bring it into this present moment, like, because we are at that critical moment. This is very much, it's like, what are we going to do? Well, the way we respond, the way we come to it, the way we decide to work with it and start to become aware of ourselves, when we change our, anything, and when we change anything, it changes the vibration. So we get to choose like how we're going to change that and what vibration we're putting out. And that is literally, it's magic. It is literally magic. Um, and you know how everybody says it's like, okay, things are moving faster and faster. Well, so is that magic energy. And we are stepping into it, and you can see how like one thing happens and the reaction that's happening is so big right now. That's the same thing that can happen in us, and not for the negative but the positive. We can all of a sudden decide to wake up and to start, I hate the word responsibility, but response ability. Think, not the old connotation of like, oh crap, I got to be responsible. This is like, no, I get to choose how I respond. And that right now is just a huge place where we all really can start stepping into our power more and on that conscious aware level, so that we start creating the things we really, really want. And so, so many people is like, well, what can I do? That work on yourself, pay attention to what's going on, because the more we start stepping into clearing out our chaos, and we start stepping into loving ourselves more, and we start creating space for something else to happen. As we're doing that, we're letting go of the old in order to bring in the new. Right now, we need to do that at a massive, massive level. And that is something that each and every single one of us can work on every single day. And just create that space, letting go. And then just, what I do, I just send love out to everybody because we all need it right now. So anybody who is in need, all beings everywhere, I send it out and share, so that, again, I'm sending that out. That's what's being returned. And it's very, very true, like on so many levels, like through everything that's been going on the past couple months. Like, I have been blessed. I have been just, but having to really stay focused on, everything is changing for the better. Everything is happening for a reason, and it's working its way out, even though we don't know what it's going to end up looking like. I just really stay in that everything's happening for the highest and best good.
And you know what I say?
What?
Amen, brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, it's an exciting time to be alive. It really is. Like this, for a lot of the energy workers, we've been hearing about this for a long time, and it was like, is it ever going to get here? Well, hello, here we are.
Well, and look at what I call. I mean, it's like a miracle when I think about it, that you can sit here. We can sit and talk with each other and see each other.
Yes.
Now, Would we have even thought about it 5 years ago to be able to do it on our home computer or on your phone?
And okay, so this is where we are now. Where are we going to be 5, 10 years from now, 50 years from now? What else is possible?
Yeah,
That's exciting.
yeah,
Yeah, because the stuff we're doing nowadays, this is the stuff, I watched on Star Trek when I was,
right, right, yeah,
and it's now it's not sci-fi anymore.
right, yeah.
Definitely. So, well, thank you so much for joining me, Jean.
All
And,
right.
and everybody out there, I hope you enjoy the recording and come and join us on Sunday nights for the Thrive On gathering. Hope to see you there. Namaste and many, many blessings and love to everybody.
Namaste.